Most people believe wealth starts at six figures. Some think it starts at 1 million. They're wrong. There is a much smaller number, one most people never reach, that quietly determines whether you'll spend your life reacting to money or controlling it. That number is $20,000, and once you understand why it matters, you'll never look at money the same way again. 1. The misunderstanding about wealth. When people talk about building wealth, they usually imagine extremes. Either someone was born rich, or they spent decades grinding and slowly stacking money one paycheck at a time. Both views miss how wealth actually forms. Wealth does not grow in a smooth, linear line. It grows in steps. There are specific financial levels where the rules change, where your behavior, your options, and your outcomes shift dramatically. Below those levels, progress feels slow and fragile. Above them, progress accelerates. The first meaningful step is not six figures. It's not a high salary. It's not a flashy investment strategy. It's $20,000 in savings and investments. 2. Why $20,000 is a real threshold. At first glance, $20,000 doesn't sound impressive. It's not enough to retire. It's not enough to live off. It won't buy you status. But that's exactly why most people underestimate it. This amount represents the point where fragility turns into stability, and stability turns into leverage. Below this level, money controls your decisions. Above it, money starts supporting them. This is the dividing line between people who remain stuck financially and those who eventually build real wealth, not because $20,000 is magical, but because of what it unlocks. 3. Momentum. Why the beginning feels so hard. Early-stage wealth building feels disproportionately difficult for a reason. When you're starting from zero, every dollar has to be earned through effort alone. Saving feels slow. Progress feels invisible. Motivation erodes because results lag behind discipline. This is not a personal failure, it's physics. Momentum works the same way in finance as it does everywhere else. Getting started requires far more energy than continuing once motion exists. The first $20,000 is where that motion finally becomes noticeable. Before it, you're forcing progress. After, progress starts to assist you. 4. The psychological shift. Survival mode ends. The most important change at this level is not mathematical, it's psychological. When you don't have savings, your brain operates defensively. Every financial choice is filtered through risk avoidance. You prioritize certainty over growth. You choose stability over opportunity, even when stability is limiting. This is often described as being responsible, but it's actually constraint-driven thinking. You don't plan long-term because you can't afford short-term mistakes. You don't take calculated risks because failure feels catastrophic. You don't optimize, you react. Once you build a meaningful financial buffer, that mental pressure eases. You stop asking, what if something goes wrong? You start asking, what's the best move? That change alone dramatically alters financial outcomes. 5. Emergency savings and mental bandwidth. Research consistently shows that even modest emergency savings improve decision-making, reduce stress, and increase long-term financial success. A small buffer prevents short-term problems from becoming long-term damage. A larger buffer creates something more valuable, mental bandwidth. With approximately 3 to 6 months of expenses saved, which for many people lands around $20,000, you're no longer making decisions under constant pressure. And decisions made without pressure are almost always better. 6. When compounding starts to show its power. Now let's talk about the math. Compounding is often explained abstractly, but its real impact is felt emotionally when results begin arriving faster than effort. If you save and invest consistently, your first $20,000 takes the longest. Every dollar must come from discipline. But once that base exists, it starts contributing alongside you. Your second $20,000 takes less time than your first. The third takes even less. Eventually, a portion of your progress comes from returns rather than labor. This is the moment when wealth stops feeling hypothetical. Before it, you're forcing progress. After, progress starts to assist you. 7. Scale beats sophistication. Many people assume wealthy investors have access to superior strategies. They don't. Most wealth is built using simple, widely available tools, diversified funds, long time horizons, and consistent contributions. The difference isn't access, it's scale. A 10% return on a small balance feels irrelevant. The same return on a large base becomes meaningful. At $20,000, returns stop being theoretical. They start being noticeable.
and noticeable progress reinforces good behavior. 8. Identity formation, the real asset you build. Saving $20,000 does more important than growing a balance. It proves something. It proves that you can delay gratification, that you can follow a plan over months or years, that you can prioritize long-term outcomes over short-term comfort. This creates an identity shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries to manage money and start seeing yourself as someone who does. That identity drives future behavior more reliably than motivation ever will. 9. From threats to options. Without savings, unexpected expenses are disasters. They force trade-offs, debt, or stress. With savings, those same events are inconveniences. More importantly, savings create access to options that were previously unavailable. Career development, business opportunities, strategic investments, negotiation power. Money doesn't create opportunity. Optionality does. And optionality requires reserves. 10. Why wealthy people ignore small expenses. This is where thinking changes. People with no margin obsess over small purchases because small mistakes matter when there's no buffer. But once a foundation exists, micro-optimizations lose importance. The difference between generic and premium groceries won't determine your financial future. The difference between a reasonable housing decision and an expensive one will. At this stage, attention shifts from pennies to levers. That's not carelessness, it's efficiency. 11. Career leverage and negotiation power. Financial reserves don't just change your relationship with money, they change your relationship with work. When you depend on every paycheck, your bargaining position is weak. You accept conditions you shouldn't. You avoid risks that could improve your career. With savings, that dynamic reverses. You don't need to quit your job to benefit from this. Simply knowing you could changes how you show up. Confidence increases, boundaries strengthen, opportunities expand. And ironically, this often leads to higher income, accelerating the cycle further. 13. The most common mistake at $20,000. Many people reach this milestone and immediately undo it. They reward themselves with expensive purchases that erase the buffer they just built. This is a misunderstanding of what the milestone represents. $20,000 is not a finish line, it's a foundation. Treating it like disposable money resets the process and sacrifices momentum. Wealth is rarely destroyed by bad investments, it's usually destroyed by premature consumption. 14. Opportunity cost thinking. At this level, thinking shifts from affordability to cost. Not can I make the payment, but what does this prevent me from doing? Every major expense now competes with future flexibility. This perspective doesn't remove enjoyment from life. It removes unconscious trade-offs. Intentional spending feels different from restriction, and it leads to better outcomes. 15. Designing instead of reacting. $20,000 won't make you wealthy, but it will move you out of survival mode and into strategic mode. That shift compounds just like money does. Better decisions lead to better outcomes. Better outcomes reinforce better decisions. And over time, that feedback loop separates those who struggle indefinitely from those who eventually build freedom. Conclusion. Wealth doesn't start with abundance, it starts with stability. $20,000 is where stability becomes leverage, where fear gives way to clarity, and effort begins to multiply. Build that foundation first. Everything that comes after becomes easier because of it.